in today's video I'll be talking about Halloween 2 from 1981, the sequel to the first Halloween movie. After the success of the first Halloween movie, the studios wanted a sequel, but John Carpenter said he had no intention of making a sequel, saying he just wanted Halloween to be a one-time solo movie, and was satisfied how the first one ended. But the studios forced an impression to make a sequel. Carpenter said he was not sure how he wanted to make a follow-up sequel to the first Halloween movie. His ideas kept changing until he went with what felt right and satisfied the studio with the script, which I'll talk about later in this video. Also, around this time, horror movie franchises were big and common to see a follow-up sequel from the first movie, like The Exorcist 2, Jaws 2, and The Omen 2. Then again, the 80s was the decade of franchise horror movie series. This movie also came around the time the slasher subgenre was popular, booming, and exploding, when every slasher movie was ripping off the first Halloween movie. For instance, like My Bloody Valentine, The Burning, Prom Night, Terror Train, and the Friday the 13th franchise was starting out. Halloween 2 is not a great movie, but to me this movie is decent and a solid sequel. I like how it picks up where the first movie left off, seeing what happened at the events of the first movie. In a way, now this will ever happen, if it did, I can see them make a combined movie of Halloween and Halloween 2 as a whole movie. Just cut out the opening credits of the jack-o'-lantern scene in Halloween 2. It's similar to like what Francis Ford Coppola did with the first two Godfather movies. But at the same time, I'm not holding my breath on this. Heck, I'm surprised they haven't done that yet with the original Universal Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, but that's a different story. After the opening credits, I think I would see that Michael Myers is still on the loose. He steals a kitchen knife from some old lady, but he's not killed the old couple. Before Michael Myers steals the knife, she was making her husband a ham sandwich while he's watching the original Night of the Living Dead on television. This is my first glimpse of Night of the Living Dead before I saw the movie in 2015. It's a running joke throughout the rest of the movie where it's being played on the background for television. Then Michael Myers kills some random teenager for no reason. No one believes Loomis that Michael Myers can't die no matter how many times you try to kill him. I remember the first time I saw this movie in 2009, 5 years later after watching the first Halloween movie. At that time I was finally getting over my fears of horror movies. I was marathoning all the Halloween movies, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I watched Halloween 2 right away because at that time I had seen the first one before and I thought, okay, let's start with Halloween 2. Then I watched every sequel leading up to the remakes at that time. But I also remember in Halloween 2009, me, my dad, and my friends watched the first Halloween film together, and it was fun. My dad was also showing me other horror movies, letting me catch up on stuff I had never seen before, like The Shining, The Thing remake. When my dad showed me The Thing remake, when I first saw John Carpenter's name on the screen, I'm like, Dad, that's the same guy who directed Halloween. I was making the connection. My dad told me that The Thing is his favorite horror/sci-fi movie. It's cool that me and my dad love two different horror movies directed by the same guy. My dad also showed me The Exorcist, The Evil Dead, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dario Argento's Suspiria, and The Silence of the Lambs. My dad was making sure I was catching up to the classics, and I was becoming a bigger horror fan. I was discovering things on my own. In college, when I joined the horror and sci-fi club, I saw and learned a lot of different varieties of horror movies from meeting people in the club. My friends Bill and Christian made recommendations to me. Even though I do like this movie, the one minor complaint I do have about this movie is when Laurie Strode is taken to the hospital, being treated for her injuries after being attacked by Michael Myers. Some random mother takes her kid to the ER because her son took a bite out of candy and there was a razor blade inside of it. They could have cut this part of the movie and we're not affecting the entire movie's plot at all. Don't get me wrong, I feel bad for this poor little kid getting a razor blade in his mouth, but it just serves no purpose to the story. But I guess before Michael Myers finds Laurie Strode at the hospital, they were lucky to avoid the chaos, otherwise they could have died that night. I guess another Hitchcock effect right here, but I could be wrong or overanalyzing and overthinking this. But from what I've read, that Laurie was originally going to save that kid from Michael Myers, but I guess they couldn't do it because of a budget reason, who the heck knows. Despite this movie not being directed by John Carpenter, he only produced and wrote the movie, but to me this movie is hard for me to believe it was not directed by John Carpenter. It feels like John Carpenter. It has the same style and spirit as the first movie. As a teenager, I misread thinking that he directed this movie. It was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who was a film student at this time. Sometimes I wonder if Rick Rosenthal felt that this was a sequel to the first Halloween movie. He probably figured he would make it in the same style as the first movie as best as he could. The crazy part is, despite directing this movie, John Carpenter secretly reshot scenes from this movie secretly, and Rick Rosenthal's sued and got mad at John Carpenter for reshooting certain scenes in this movie. Another reason why John Carpenter secretly shot this movie is because he was worried and afraid that the film would not be successful because he did not think that Rick Rosenthal did not make this film as gore as he would have wanted it to be. Basically, if someone told me that this was not directed by John Carpenter, I would not have believed that. The movie was shot on a bigger budget. It's a little more gore and exploited than the first movie. There are two cuts to this movie, a regular cut and a TV cut. I won't really explain the differences between both cuts. There are a lot of YouTubers that have touched upon this. I recommend you go check out Hack the Movies video on Halloween 2 TV cut version. I will say, I've seen the TV cut. I don't hate it. I prefer the original cut because the TV cut is different and it cuts out certain dialogue. Like, for example, when Dr. Loomis goes outside the house seeing Michael Myers is gone, the next door neighbor comes out, Loomis tells him to call the police, and he says, "I've been trick-or-treated to death." Loomis responds, "You don't know what death is." He doesn't say that in the TV cut. That just stinks and ruins that. It's a great line in the theatrical cut. Then I like how it adds the music intro. It's no Carpenter score from the first movie, but it is decent. It's got a different tune and beat compared to the first score. I'm not sure it was the intention to change it up, or Carpenter were not allowed to use his old score from the first movie. I don't understand why they made TV cuts to this in the first movie. Just leave it alone. In the opening, I like how it shows a jack-o'-lantern again, but this time it slowly opens, and you see a skull inside the jack-o'-lantern with spiderwebs around it. It shows that Michael Myers is still at large. Really cool opening. I like the visual shots of Michael Myers walking into town because it's Halloween. Michael Myers can blend in with the crowd because almost everyone is dressed up on Halloween. No one would assume this is Michael Myers. They would think that was some random guy dressed up for Halloween, not knowing that he was a serial killer. The one part that really shocked me and did not see come was when Loomis thought he saw Michael Myers. It was some random teenager dressed in the same costume. Then he gets hit by a police car, gets rammed into a van, and he explodes. My first view on this was like, damn, poor kid. That person who was accidentally killed was Ben Tramer, the guy Laurie Strode had a crush on in the first movie that was mentioned. Well, I guess Laurie won't be going to the dance with him after all. As I said before, this movie is a little bit more gore than the first movie, but it's not as over the top as people have said it is with the gore in this film. This movie shows that Laurie Strode is not safe at the hospital. After breaking a bone from the fall and getting a cut on her arm by Michael Myers, she's afraid to be sedated knowing Michael Myers is still out there and can kill her. Dr. Loomis is still on the hunt for Michael Myers, and once again, Donald Pleasence does a good job in this movie as Dr. Loomis. Don't get me wrong, I was glad to see Jamie Lee Curtis again as Laurie Strode in this movie, but she doesn't do that much. At the same time, I get it. She was recovering from an injury. It would have been nice if she asked someone or Lindsay Walls and Tommy Doyle were alright. Laurie took a backseat in this movie. Despite the hairstyle you see in this movie, Jamie Lee Curtis, believe it or not, she was wearing a wig, and part of the reason is because she was filming Trading Places around the same time as this movie. Despite the hairstyle you see in this movie, Jamie Lee Curtis, believe it or not, she was wearing a wig, and part of the reason is because she was filming Trading Places around the same time as this movie. For a wig, it was very convincing and believable. You would never assume that this was a wig that she was wearing. It looks like the same hairstyle as the first movie. In this movie, it's mentioned that Laurie Strode is the younger sister of Michael Myers. This twist is mixed from Halloween fans because it cheapens the original. I remember some fans pointing out that it only makes Michael Myers less scary, that he only kills family. It takes away Michael Myers from being scared with his blank devil eyes. For me personally, I don't think it's not bad. At the same time, I still like how in the first movie, there was no explanation on why Michael Myers kills. The less we knew, the better. But I do respect some fans may or may not like this twist. You can say it was lazy writing and a last-minute decision by John Carpenter because he had a deadline to finish a script for Halloween 2. Carpenter admitted he didn't like this idea, but he had no choice. I like the flashback scene when Laurie Strode has little Mary meeting this boy in the asylum, but little did she know that was her brother. In 2017, I did the Halloween podcast with my friends Christian Bill and my late great friend Chris Mano. He pointed out this idea felt a little bit like Empire Strikes Back. The scene where they find Sam Hain written in the classroom in blood, that's very creepy. Loomis gives another good speech on why Michael Myers possibly kills when he learns from the nurse from the first movie that Laurie Strode is the sister of Michael Myers, seeing the connection of a repeat, how Michael Myers killed his older sister Judith years ago, and now he's on to another sister, Laurie. I'll admit, I'm not sure what Sam Hain means. There's probably tons of fan theories on this on the internet. The chase scene when Michael Myers is chasing Laurie at the hospital is a repeat from the last movie, but this time Laurie has an injury and she can't run that fast. While it's not as good as the last movie, it's still a good chase sequence, but it's one of those, yeah, I've already seen this done already. Not much else to say or offer about this scene. Originally, Jamie Lee Curtis did not want to be in this movie. She was afraid and worried about being typecast, despite being an established scream queen from other horror movies she did after Halloween. Prom Night, Terror Train, and The Fog, a second John Carpenter movie she did with him after the first Halloween movie. Before this movie's final result, they wanted to have this movie take place years later, with Laurie in college or all grown up working a job she likes and hiding from Michael Myers. Originally, Carpenter wanted to write a new set of characters Michael Myers goes after. That could have been more interesting, but I'm okay with this movie despite minor flaws and nitpicks. It was sad for Sheriff Bragg when he finds out his daughter Annie was killed by Michael Myers. He hates Loomis thinking that he let him out. To be fair, Loomis does show his condolences and sympathy to Brackett, and that Michael Myers' escape was not let go. There is a difference. But at the same time, Brackett was so mad and angry. Sheriff Brackett says he had to go home to his wife to tell her the bad news, that their daughter was murdered, before someone else tells his wife the bad news. We don't see it, but in our minds, we can only imagine how hard that is for him to tell his wife. The paramedic Jimmy, played by Lance Guest, takes a liking to Laurie. He doesn't get the hint that he must let Laurie rest and recover. It's nice of him to show concern and compassion, offer a Coke, but at the same time, he had to learn hospital rules and policies and boundaries. People think Jimmy dies in this movie because he slips over blood, and in the car he leans his head on the steering wheel, but in the TV cut it shows that he survives. But honestly, I don't think he dies regardless of which cut. From what I've read, he just had a concussion and he faints. That's it. Jimmy's friend Bub is a sleazy, annoying jerk and dirtbag, cursed like a truck driver. He has a thing for one of the nurses. It's funny when he sings Amazing Grace while smoking pot, but it's so jerky and annoying the way he sings it still. This actor was in the movie River's Edge with Keanu Reeves. I've never seen that movie, but what I've heard is supposed to be a good movie. This past year I met Dick Warlock, the stuntman in Monster Man, as mentioned in my Trip to Monster Mania video, who played Michael Myers on Halloween 2. In the last movie, he was played by Nick Castle and other various people. In this movie, they had a stuntman play Michael Myers instead of Nick Castle. He did not come back to play Michael Myers again because he was starting his career as a film director. While he's no Nick Castle, he does an alright job as Michael Myers. Some fans say he's a little more brutal and intimidating than Nick Castle, but that depends on personal preference. Some fans have also said he walks robotic compared to Nick Castle, which I could see that. Kind of walks around like Frankenstein or a zombie to some degree. Dick Warlock was a stuntman in a lot of John Carpenter movies, and he was also Kurt Russell's stunt double for many years. This will also surprise you. He was a stuntman in Mel Brooks movies, Blazing Saddles and Spaceballs. Dick Warlock at the time was 5'9". He's considered to be the shortest actor to play Michael Myers. He had to wear shoeless to look taller. When I met him at Monster Mania, he was very nice and friendly to me. He asked me how was I doing, and I told him I was doing good. I was having a good time at Monster Mania. But the weird part was, I was talking to him and getting a photo with him, having a nice small talk conversation. He was looking at a guy he thought was being a creep or spying on him, and he asked me what this guy was doing or looking at, and I shrugged to him, I have no idea. After meeting Dick Warlock, I walked up to the guy, and he asked me what was that all about, and I was being a gentleman, shrugging my shoulders, saying I had no idea. I asked him, do you know him personally, and he said no. Dick Warlock signed my Blu-ray 4K of Halloween 2. But at the same time, that did not ruin my experience or ruin the good moment of meeting Dick Warlock, one of my favorite Michael Myers stuntman actors. This movie has some good kill scenes in the series, Like I said before, in the intro, Michael Myers kills some random teenage girl after stealing an old lady's kitchen knife. Michael Myers shoves a nurse's face into hot boiling water, sticks a needle in one of the nurse's head. Michael Myers killing that nurse in the hot boiling water, that's very scary and a good original kill right there. Her face burns up like crispy fried chicken. From reading about that scene, of course, the water was cold, and she was only acting pretending that she was dying of water burn. Also, one of the nurses looking for Laurie, Michael Myers stabs her in the back. This movie ups the kill count. In the first movie, Michael Myers kills 5 people. In this movie, kills 9 people. I agree with fans that these minor characters who are nurses, paramedics, and the security guard don't really serve much of a purpose, except their only purpose was for more kills for Michael Myers. It feels like a Friday the 13th movie where the characters are shallow, cliched, in a Halloween slasher movie. Then again, Friday the 13th knocked off Halloween, but that's a different topic for later. As usual, the joke the security guard only had 2 days left before retirement.
Believe it or not, Dana Carvey's in this movie as a minor extra character before he was famous on SNL.
The way the movie ends, Michael Myers dies. They really wanted to kill off Michael Myers in this movie. After Michael Myers stabs Loomis in the abdomen, Laurie shoots him in the eyes. He's blind and Michael can't see. He swings his scalpel around, Laurie escapes. Loomis sacrifices himself, lights up the gas, and blows up the hospital. Before the explosion, I like when Loomis says, "It's time, Michael. It's time for Michael Myers to die." We see Michael Myers walk in the fire like the Thing, but then he falls to his death. Michael Myers burns to a crisp at the end. This is one of the few Halloween sequels to end and take place the day after Halloween on November 1st. But I'm not sure this movie takes place after midnight during November 1st, or are we still on Halloween night? Who knows? I don't want to overthink this. Here my friend Joey's recording giving his thoughts on Halloween 2.
Halloween 1 was my best, but because most of the time, in my opinion, the first ones are the best. But like I said, the first 4 in the Halloween series are my top, because I like the sequels to those other ones. So yeah, the first 4 were my favorite. Halloween 2 was another good movie in the series. 1, 2, 3, and 4 was actually my favorite ones out of the series. And part 5, 6, Halloween H2O and Halloween Resurrection, they were good too. Halloween H2O, but the first 4 was my favorite. Halloween 2 again, like I said, is another great one in the series. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis once again. This time Michael Myers follows her to the hospital after events happen from the first one. It also stars Lance Guest. He was also in Jaws of Revenge, but he was in Halloween 2 also. Donald Pleasant, once again is in it. Like I said, he's in most of them. Up until part 6 is his last one, but he's in like most of them. He was another good character for the series. It also stars Cliff. I forgot his last name, but I know his first name is Cliff. He was in Halloween 2 also. He was also in Return to Horror High and some of the Hulk series too from the 70s. But yeah, this is another cool movie in the franchise. It continues, this continues right where the first Halloween left off. And but yeah, this is another good one. So I would recommend to take a look at this too, to watch this movie. Like I say, I watch them in the holidays, but I watch them all year round. They're my favorite series. Friday the 13th is my first, but Halloween is second. So yeah, I like these series a lot too. And of course, the Nightmare on Elm Street series I like too. So actually, yeah, the Friday the 13th is my first, and the Nightmare on Elm Street is my second best franchises. But Halloween is another one. That would be my next one. So, but yeah, these are my favorite series. They really, really are. Another favorite franchise. So, but yeah, I strongly recommend to take a look at this.
It's not a great movie, but it's still a good, decent sequel. They really did their best, but it was impossible to top the first movie. When it first came out, it was not a hit or success, but in later years it gained a cult following. Another reason why this movie did not do as well as it could have, Carpenter had no passion for this movie. I still like this movie. It's not perfect, but it still has a little consistency for me. It's a sequel I enjoy going back to rewatch for fun every now and then, Sometimes after watching the first Halloween movie, I'll pop this movie in for a continuing story, or just sometimes I'll skip over to Halloween 2 if I'm just in the mood to watch Halloween 2 for a rare occasion. That was my video of Halloween 2. Stay tuned for Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.